Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates. We are back for our continued discussion on microcaps. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Excited for part 2 of 4 of our long-form discussion this week.
Yep.
I think part 1 went well.
Part 1 went very well. Well, our guest is back.
Jeez, yeah, if we lost Gino, we would be in trouble for the rest of the week.
Yeah, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But we are joined in the studio by Gino Ross, Portfolio Manager at Spheria Global Microcaps Fund. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to be back. I tried running away, but security's pretty good.
Yeah. We've got Bryce posted on the door between takes. So in the first episode, we talked about, I guess, why microcaps, what's the opportunity, what are we talking about here? In this episode, we really want to drill down on Australia versus the rest of the world, what the microcap universe is like in Australia, and then why you decided to orientate globally and look at that bigger universe. So we touched on it in the last episode, but if people are watching these individually or out of order, you shouldn't be. Go back and watch episode 1 first. But just in case people are, can you just define the difference between what a microcap is in Australia and then what it is in the world?
Sure. So, I mean, just as the large caps globally are so much bigger than our Aussie large caps. Likewise, when we talk about small caps or we talk about micro, in a global context, they're bigger companies. So we define them as sub US 1 billion.
Yep.
The fund can own stocks bigger than that, but predominantly we're looking for companies under US 1 billion. And we can go down to US 50 million. Whereas in Australia, microcaps typically are sub US 400 million is how our fund defines it in Australia. And so, much smaller companies relative.
What's the universe of microcaps look like here compared to the US, perhaps Europe, and what are the opportunities there?
Yeah, I think every country has its strengths, and in Australia, obviously, there's no secret. We're good at resources. So like Canada, we have a big resource sector. Where we're relatively light on is healthcare, although I must say I think Australia's improved quite a lot on that. But can't compare what's available here compared to Europe and the US in terms of healthcare. IT, likewise, I think whilst there are a lot of IT companies running around Australia, or software companies, I don't. Some of them purport to be, great software and IT companies, but in reality, they're not really there yet. Whereas again, if you go to the US in particular, you're seeing some very good IT companies available. It just surprised me that it's funny. I think, as I said, Australia's changed its attitude to healthcare a little bit, but if you go back, there really wasn't a lot on offer in Australia. And then you'd look at what you could get in, Scandinavia or Europe or the US, and you think, wow, that's an amazing healthcare companies, and it's only small. It sort of surprises you at first, But no, it's those sectors, like in large cap, really healthcare and IT, where Australia tends to bat under average.
I think you can tell how few quality IT stocks we have, and we definitely have a few guns, but you know that they're few and far between, because when everyone finds one, the excitement for that stock, the coverage in the AFR, the valuations it gets, everyone is like, we found one, let's go all in.
Exactly.
I assume that's not the dynamic in the US.
No, you're exactly right. It's very noticeable in Australia, how excited, as say, people get about stocks with good potential. Whereas, we recently picked up a healthcare company in the US that's doubling its revenue every year.
Wow.
And it's US 500 million market cap. It's those sort of opportunities are out there, and whereas in Australia, something like that would just be through the roof.
You can see it. The classic example of that these days is the hype around Canva. Canva, unbelievably good company, raising money. It'll go public at some point, and there's so much AFR coverage on it because it's this is the one. This is a great global potential SaaS business.
Yep, absolutely.
And it'll pop.
Yeah.
And then you lose all your money.
I don't think you'll lose all your money. But anyway, we're here to talk about microcaps. I don't think Canva will be a microcap.
No.
So if we talk, we spoke about the difference, and Australia loves mining explorers and resource microcaps. But a lot of people have made a lot of money in that sector. Why is it that you decided with your fund that you didn't want to focus on the microcaps in Australia, the mining explorers and stuff like that, and you'd rather focus on, you know, the healthcare, IT, other opportunities overseas?
Well, it's just such a big opportunity, you know, 16,000 companies to choose from. I think I saw some analysis a while ago that, you know, if you look at the sectors that are the best performing through time, I don't think resources was near the top, but healthcare certainly did very well. So, you know, to have these different sectors, you know, something like healthcare is very defensive, so it's not as prone to economic fluctuations. Something like IT is obviously very exciting. You know, they behave different. I think they add to diversification, and, you know, resources obviously very leverage the economy. Yeah, it's just an immense opportunity, and the nice thing about a global fund is we do not have to invest in any country.
Yeah.
Right, we can go, well, that country is not presenting a lot of opportunities, or it's expensive. You know, we see better value over here, so let's go there. So it's just having that choice is always a good thing, right? But, you know, and in terms of resources, you know, we can invest and do invest in Canada.
Yeah.
Also has great resource companies. You know, we've looked at 2 companies closely. We bought one Canadian resource company. We have a great resource company in the US, in soda ash. I mean, you know, a good example is soda ash. You've got 5 natural deposits in the US, and that's it. So, and our company owns one of those deposits.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, they're the kind of unique assets out there that, you know, just add something, I think.
This might be showing my
us.
ignorance, but I got no idea what soda ash is.
So-
I was like, yeah, soda ash.
I've got some with me. Soda ash is predominantly used for glass. So a lot of it's for glass containers and building windows. Yeah.
Right, there you go.
And so, you know, you've got these deposits in the US that are the lowest cost on the curve. China also makes a lot of synthetic soda ash, which is relatively more expensive, and I assume pretty bad for the environment. But
Yeah, right.
So you mentioned on Monday's episode that you only invest in developed markets. If you think about the opportunities you're looking at the moment or over the last sort of 12 months, what are some of the countries that have been providing some exciting opportunities?
I mean, we keep getting blown away by companies in Scandinavia.
Yeah, right.
Just some amazingly clever companies. You know, they're a very innovative bunch. One of our favourite companies that we've sold just because it's done too well is MIPS. So MIPS had a helmet technology that sat inside helmets and reduced brain damage from rotational motion. And the beauty is this company sells this piece of plastic to all the helmet manufacturers, you know, Bell or I don't know, what are the other helmet manufacturers out there?
Couldn't
You're
tell.
not cyclists. You're like the only
but I don't
two.
think about my helmet.
right.
Netty?
Netty,
I
yeah,
don't know,
Netty.
whatever.
I was going to say the only 2 who aren't cycling after COVID. And so, you know, it's called an ingredient brand. So they sell it, it sits inside the helmet, they put a little MIP sticker on the outside, huge returns, great IP, just a very innovative business that, you know, is great for the consumers, great for the helmet manufacturers, great for the retailer. You know, just something that you just is so clever that the Scandies are great at coming up with.
Yeah.
I think Switzerland also has some really good companies. France has some great mini-me's, so like a large cap but smaller.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, one of my favourite examples there is Vitoquinol. So they're largely family-controlled animal pharmaceutical company. So, you know, you've seen some real consolidation animal pharmaceuticals. You know, Zoetis is the biggest in the world. You've had Elanco, I think, just by Bayer. A lot of these human pharmaceutical companies have divested the animal health, and they've hence consolidated. And it's a great industry.
Yeah,
You don't have that regulatory risk. It's growing very strongly, particularly after COVID. Everyone's got a pet, and is cycling. Yeah, here you've got this French company that's just under the radar. That's growing as well as any other. Net cash balance sheet. You know, so France has some great mini-me's. If you're looking for value, I think Japan presents fantastic value. And some amazing companies there. You know, it's a big market domestically, so you don't really need these things to be multinational. Italy and Spain are a bit on the nose, although gearing can be a bit of an issue in those countries. The balance sheets aren't quite as good as other parts of the world. And UK actually, funnily enough, almost post-Brexit, the UK got cheaper, if that makes sense. Like almost like people were there for the Brexit because they thought there was an opportunity. And once sort of Brexit, I don't know it's resolved, but at least the hysteria had gone, people sort of went on elsewhere looking for trade. So UK has actually looked pretty good value lately as well.
Yeah, right.
US looks hideously expensive.
Okay.
So yeah, you do get these situations, and the nice thing about the fund is, we can look for the best opportunity out there.
Yeah. Is the Australian market expensive?
It depends what you're looking for. So to our earlier point, anything sort of sexy, IT related, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, if, we own a fair amount, we own some good consumer discretionary in Australia, we think that's pretty good, particularly given, how well the consumer's done in Australia and the fact that they've been able to spend it. In a lot of countries overseas, the government's handed them checks, but they haven't really been able to spend it.
Yeah.
Whereas
Just
in
going into stocks.
Yeah. Whereas in Australia, we've actually been able to spend it as well, and despite that, I think the stocks aren't too expensive in consumer discretionary. Resources, obviously, we like to invest in Australia for resources. So yeah, Australia, outside of these really hot stocks, actually seems reasonable value still.
So we've mentioned that Australia is known for resources and mining explorers. Same, Canada is known for resources. You said France is known for mini-me's. You mentioned a number of other European countries there, and it's one thing that we've been speaking about a lot. I think the first couple of years of the podcast, we really only spoke about America and Australia, and we're getting more and more interested in Europe. Are any of those other European markets known for like specific industries or specific things that we should be looking for?
Well, they are in Eurovision, so I'll call it Europe, which is Israel.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously they're very strong in IT and security, defence security, and it's actually 4% of the index, so it's actually a reasonable part of the microcap index.
They've got a very entrepreneurial culture
Very,
in Israel.
very, and a lot of engineers and scientists too. So I think that's an interesting country. Yeah, I think somewhere like Italy and Spain are actually pretty good in terms of capital goods. So we own a train manufacturer in Spain. We own an industrial in Italy called Data Logic. So when you go to the supermarket and you hear that beep, they actually came up with that. So they've got a really long history in that scanning technology. But they're on the border with machine vision.
Okay.
So you've got companies like Anisra got taken over, which was a German machine vision company on incredible multiple. It was eye-watering. I just couldn't believe anyone paid that much for it. And meanwhile, you've got this company that has some machine vision, but it just goes totally unnoticed because a lot of its business is scanning. They also do RFDI. They also do mobile computing. So very innovative business. Again, family controlled, which we quite like. I think that's the other difference between Australia and global. You do see more family control in some markets. Asia, Europe. It's not unusual to have family controlled businesses. Which, interesting enough, Credit Suisse did a report showing that family controlled businesses outperform over the long run.
Oh, right. Interesting. Well, we have touched on Australia versus the world. Tomorrow is Watchlist Wednesday, where we're going to hear 3 stocks that are on your watch list or in your phone. Yes, your favourite segment. Our favourite too. Gino, again, thank you for joining us. We'll pick it up tomorrow.
Thanks a lot.
That is the end of the episode for today. As you have just heard, tomorrow is Watchlist Wednesday, Ren, and we'll be picking it up to hear Gino. So we'll catch you tomorrow back in the studio for a continued discussion on microcaps with Gino Ross.